Now that we've got a better understanding about what's happening with resistance in a wire, let's look at how we're going to test for it. As physicists, we do a lot of testing, so let's make sure we're doing it the right way. So, an experimental plan. There are a number of factors within an experimental plan, and they're all tied together well. First thing is making sure we understand what we're doing. Now, experiments should be fun, okay? So yes, they should be fun, but they also have to have a goal. They have to have an idea behind them. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to test ideas. So let's make sure we're clear about what it is, and we do that by thinking about an aim, we think about a plan, we think about the results, we think about a conclusion. And in each of those, we need to have a focus, because without a focus, then we can just drift around. Our focus is going to come based on the variables. So we have two variables that are key to an experiment. We've got the independent variable and we've got the dependent variable. Now, the independent variable, sometimes thought as the input variable, is the one that we're going to change. So we change this, and then we're going to measure something and see what the effect is. That's the dependent variable. So the dependent variable is what we measure, it's what we don't know. Now, obviously we need to measure everything, okay, but first thing to do is make sure we understand what these two are, because we are going to write an aim. The aim is going to talk about how we want to find out how the independent variable affects the dependent variable. We're then going to write a plan. The plan is going to tell us how to measure the independent variable, how many independent variables we should be looking at, and rather how many results we should be getting for that independent variable. It's going to tell us how to measure the dependent variable. And it's also going to tell us how to keep everything else constant. But we've got a focus there, the independent variable and the dependent variable. How do we measure them? Then we've got the results table. The results are going to have, usually the left-hand column is going to have the independent variable. The next column is going to have the dependent variable, and then there'll be some other things on there as well. Okay, sometimes we need to do a calculation to get the dependent variable out of there. And then we're going to have a conclusion, and the conclusion is going to be linked to the aim, because it's going to tell us what we found out. How did the independent variable affect the dependent variable? So an experimental plan, the whole thing, is a detailed story about two variables. And so we need to be telling that story in every part of it. And if there's anything in there that doesn't relate to it, we should get it out. But if there's anything that we need to include, we should make sure it's in there. So how do we write a nice detailed story? Well, what I like to think about is that you're going to do an experiment, or you're going to write a plan, and you've got a really annoying younger brother or younger sister. The younger brother or younger sister, they're going to do the experiment, but they're going to do it wrong. If they've got any chance, they'll do it wrong because they're annoying, but also they don't know as much as you. They haven't learned as much as you. So you need to give them very clear steps. You need 1, 2, 3. Tell them what to do, and tell them everything they need to do, because if you don't tell them something, they're going to get it wrong. So for example, if you say a common one is going to be measure the temperature. Measure the temperature. Okay, nice and easy. How are they going to do that? You might even say measure temperature using a thermometer. Okay, so yeah, you've got a bit of detail in there because you're actually saying how we're going to measure it. That is important. But what's your younger brother or younger sister going to do? They're going to think, oh no, I'm feeling a bit poorly, and they're going to put a thermometer in their mouth and check whether they've got a fever or not. Because you haven't told them yet which temperature are they meant to be measuring. So every variable has to have two factors to it. They have to have a property, and they have to have a thing. Okay? Property and a thing. They have to have maybe like an adjective and a noun. So instead of measuring the temperature, measure the temperature of the wire, measure the length of the wire, measure the cross-sectional area of the wire, measure or test the material of the wire. So get your detail in there, make sure that your variables are clear, and because if you've got clear variables, then you're going to be able to write a clear aim, and you'll write a clear plan. You can write a clear results table, and you can... So in this lesson, we've looked at how to do an experiment and how to write a plan. You have to include detail and you have to focus on the variables. It's a story about the variables, and you are going to have the independent variable, you've got the dependent variable, and if you're going to be clear, every time you write about a variable, you need to include what it is you're measuring and what the object is that you're measuring it on. So the temperature of the wire, the area of the wire.